Hello everyone and welcome to Card Combo Show with me, Choco Billy. Make sure to like and subscribe. Let's have a look at the cards we're going to look at today. So, we've got quite a few spoilers actually, because it's been a little while since I did my last episode. So we've got Fenrir, who's got some interesting choices as a summon, also beautiful artwork. Regis, another dual colour card, which will be fun to play with. Celes. Beatrix, again, another spoiler and beautiful full art. And finally, Zack. Let's get to it. Okay, so the first card, Fenrir, who has the text, select up to 2 of the 4 following actions. Choose 1 light forward or dark forward, break it. Choose 1 backup of cost 4 or more, break it. Choose 1 monster, break it. Or choose 1 earth forward of cost 2 in your break zone, play it onto the field dull. So I'm not a huge fan of this card, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think earth, if you make a mono earth deck, you can have a fair amount of 5 CP plus cards, but that's because earth has got a lot of good cards in that range. And I don't think Fenrir is really a contender for any of those cards. Now, one of the good things about the card is the fact that it says choose 1 light or dark forward, break it, and choose 1 backup of cost 4 or more, break it. It does, or choose 1 monster, break it. It doesn't stipulate they have to be your opponent, so you can break your own stuff, which means that it's future-proofing. It might have some really good combos later on in the game, when more cards have been released. But for now, I think its effects are a little too situational. Even like the easiest one to get off, choose 1 earth forward of cost 2 or more in your, cost 2 in your break zone, play it onto the field dull, and that's of cost 2, not cost 2 or less. You can play that fairly easily, I imagine, but the other 3, if you do pick a second option, they're not really, they're too niche to be able to be used. But anyway, moving into the cards it combos with. So Ajudo Malajudo, play Ajudo to then play Fenrir, to then maybe break forward of your opponent and then bring something in. It's just a nice easy way to cast it and gain a backup at the same time. Summoner, again another easy way to cast it. You crack your Summoner to play Fenrir. I've always really enjoyed using the Summoner actually, because your opponent forgets it's there, and because it's a standard unit backup, it's a very simplistic in its design, but you just break a backup and you've paid 3 for it, so at most you've kind of paid like 5, but to be able to cast something like Fenrir, which got multiple abilities, is really useful. So Star Sibyl and Veritas. So there's a funny little play you can do here. Let's say you crack your Star Sibyl to play Veritas onto the field. Your opponent has to sacrifice I believe it's a forward. Yeah. So they have to sacrifice a forward. And then let's say you've got your summoner, so this summoner, on your backup line as well. And then you break that to cast Fenrir. And you choose your Veritas to break and a backup of 4 or more they have to be broken. They would have lost a forward, and they will have lost a backup and another character because of Veritas. And you have broken Star Sibyl and Summoner to be able to do this, and you've also broken your own Veritas as well, so you're effectively out of 3 cards, sorry. But of the CP you've actually paid for them, Star Sibyl and Summoner. That's pretty good. Now you can go one step further with this and use Doga. So obviously when you cast Fenrir, Doga will also trigger as well. Doga's a bit better than Fenrir because it's a backup of 3 or more. Oh no, sorry, so choose a summon. When you cast a summon of 4 or more, choose 1 backup of 3 or more your opponent controls and break it. So you could potentially break a backup with Fenrir, a backup with Doga, a backup with Veritas, and then a forward when Veritas enters as well. All for breaking your Star Sibyl, your Veritas, and your Summoner. Again, you have kind of sacked your own stuff, but if you've managed to take out 3 of your opponent's backups and a forward of theirs, that could be worth it. You kind of have to wait for the planets to align for this sort of thing to happen, but when it does happen, it's pretty funny. Archangel TT. So being able to bring him onto the field, and maybe your opponent's attacked with something, you cast Fenrir to maybe, I don't know, break a dark or light forward they control, and then bring Archangel as well, to then make it so at the end of the next turn, Archangel will kill that forward. Scarmelian. He's not exactly powerful, and when Fenrir brings something into the field, unfortunately it does come in dull. But, you know, when Scarmelian enters the field from the break zone, choose one forward, deal it damage equal to half Scarmelian's power. So it'll only be 3k, but if you're running the Scarmelian, there's chances are you'll be running it with his S ability in mind and a few janky plays. So maybe you can get Scarmelian to work, something like that. Noctis, so there's a lot of good 15 cards now in Lightning and in Earth, so Noctis being able to trigger to get something might be quite useful, so maybe being able to break your opponent's back up and then bring a Noctis to draw yourself another card. It recurs the value of Fenrir a little bit. What's also good is the fact that the card that Fenrir brings in... Never mind, I was about to say something that's not true. Kryl, so obviously Kryl was a new spoiler for the set as well, but being able to bring in Kryl to then cast another summon, maybe you want to cast the Fenrir again. Why you would do that I don't know, because again, like I said before, it's very situational, and chances are you can cast it twice in a row and be able to get all 4 abilities to do something. Pretty slim, but yeah, being able to cast Fenrir to bring in Kryl to then cast a summon that's in your break zone, that might be quite a nice little combo, because the summons are sat there and you really need to cast it, you don't have any more left in your deck, but Kryl has the ability to do that, so if you can retrieve her, then you can cast that summon. Again, it will be costing a lot because you've paid the 5 for Fenrir, and if it's another costly summon, you're going to be investing a lot in it, but sometimes needs must. Right, Regis. So you must pay Lightning and you must pay Earth to play this forward onto the field. But if you do so, the effects are probably worth it. So when Regis enters the field, choose up to 2 forwards other than card name Regis, light or dark, put into your break zone. From the field this turn, play them onto the field. So, what that means is if a forward that isn't Regis, a light forward or a dark forward, was put into the field this turn, put into the break zone this turn, even I can't get it right, you can play it back onto the field using Regis. And you can do that with 2 different forwards. That's really, really powerful because there is no stipulation on the cost of that card. And then he's got his own S as well, which is 1 Earth, 1 Lightning, and an S. All the forwards you control gain. This forward cannot be broken until the end of the turn. So, Star Sybil, being able to cast, or to break Star Sybil to bring in Regis, that's going to be great, especially if you can get 2 forwards to re-enter the field. Now, obviously, this does require you to have lost 2 forwards this turn, but there are ways to make that happen. Kefka. So, here's a situation for you. Let's say you've got Kefka. Oh, no, sorry. Let's say you've got Regis and then 2 other forwards on the field. Already, that's pretty wide. True, but maybe they're not massive forwards, they're just forwards with good enter the field abilities. You put those 3 into the break zone to play Kefka onto the field. Kefka can then break one of your forwards' opponents. One of your opponent's forwards. Then you play Tama onto the field to bring in Regis, to then bring in the 2 other forwards that you sacked. You have gained a Kefka, gained a Tama, and you've got those entry abilities of the other 2 forwards. So, yeah, for what you've broken your 3 forwards and you've paid 7 for Tama to gain Kefka and break your opponent's forwards plus any entry abilities. That's pretty good. Hecaton Shear. So the reason for saying this is that you're going to want to break Yuna. Yuna being able to remove, or the backup Yuna being able to remove any forwards that leave the field from the game would mean that Regis is useless. So being able to use Hecaton Shear or other means of breaking your opponent's backups will be vital, especially if you're running Regis. So you can kind of gauge it when you play. If your opponent's in like Fire, Lightning, then you'll probably be fine. But if you see even a hint of water, make sure that you keep that Hecaton Shear in your hand. Cloud. So Cloud obviously can dull himself and put a forward into the break zone to then play another forward onto the field. Obviously you want to make sure that if Cloud's bringing something into the field and then you want to use Regis to play that forward he broke back onto the field, make sure they're not the same name. So don't use Cloud to break a Sephi to bring in a Sephi, because then the Sephi that's in the break zone can't be brought in by Regis. Fenrir. So this new well, he's not new, sorry, but this Fenrir is going to be one of the promo cards coming up in October, I think. So it's going to maybe see a little bit more play, I doubt it, but being able to use him to break 2 of your forwards and 2 of your opponent's forwards, hopefully, and then play Regis to bring your 2 forwards back, that's pretty good going. Kane, Shantoto, and Ranpair. So this trio already do lots anyway, but being able to put Regis in the mix to be able to bring them back is just horrible. So obviously the play is you put Rampare into the break zone, through Kane's ability play Kane, Rampare then brings Shantoto in, Shantoto then can bring something else, or Rampare back onto the field. Let's say you lose Kane and Shantoto, then you crack your Star Sybil, or you just pay full for Regis to then get Kane and Shantoto back. It's just so powerful, man. Okay, Beatrix. Quick question for you all. If there's a multiple Beatrix, are they Beatrices or Beatrixes? Anyway, her text. When Beatrix or a job knight enters your field, all the forwards you control gain plus 2,000 power until the end of the turn. Pay 0. During this turn, the cost required to cast your next job knight forward is reduced by 2. It cannot become 0. You can only use this ability during your turn and only once per turn. So she's a 2 CP, 5k, nothing too powerful, but her abilities are really good. So Steiner, obviously if you're on 3 damage already and you play this Steiner onto the field using Beatrix's ability, meaning that he costs 2 CP less, he's 2 CP generating you a card, he's a big enough forward, and ultimately he will also get he will give a power buff to anything on the field. So buff Beatrix up by 2, maybe she can swing being a 7k. Obviously you want to play this in line with something like Ovalia or Treon as well, because knights do a good job of just buffing each other and just getting wide really quickly. So Ovalia being able to make that happen continuously, and then Treon, obviously you can make him cost 2 less through Beatrix's ability, play him onto the field, all your knights gain even more power. Now, if you use Ovalia, Treon, Beatrix with Ramza, oh boy, you don't even have to worry about Treon in this. So if you just use Ovalia and Beatrix plus her ability to make Ramza cost 2 less, and then Ramza will stipulate that because you have a forward on the field, he costs 1 less, so he's now a 3 CP forward. You play him onto the field for 3 CP. He has gained plus 2,000 from Beatrix's ability. He's gained plus 1 from Beatrix being a forward on the field, and plus 1 from Ovalia. He's now a 10k forward with haste that can break a 3 CP forward. If Ramza has 10,000 power or more, Ramza gains haste, and when Ramza attacks, choose one forward of cost 3 or less your opponent controls, break it. That is just really good. Yeah, there's nothing more to say. Phoenix. So there aren't a huge amount of knights in fire. Garland, I think, might be the only one. There's only one comes to mind, but 9 works well in fire water, and fire water just works well on its own anyway. So being able to play Phoenix to deal 2k to all your opponent's forwards, and then bring in Beatrix and be able to buff herself or another forward by 2,000 is pretty good. Une. So this might seem like a bit of a weird one. There are no knights in ice as far as I'm aware. But the reason I say Une is it's more of Beatrix's ability or stipulation on her 0 cost ability. You can only use this ability during your turn and once per turn. And obviously Une is you can only trigger this during your turn. But my point is that Beatrix can use her ability to make a knight cost 2 CP less. You then cast a summon. You flicker you flicker Beatrix. Beatrix can then use her 0 cost ability again. Because she is a new card on the field, the stipulation of once per turn doesn't apply from the previous cast, because she is a new card. So you can use it again to then make another knight cost minus 2 CP. So, yeah, nice little combo. Garland and Rampare. So obviously when Garland enters the field, select 3 characters of selects 1 character of cost 3 or less other than Garland you control, put it from the field into the break zone. Using Beatrix, he can become a 1 CP forward. A 1 CP 9k first strike forward that can break Rampare to then bring something else onto the field. That is insane. Power creep, I guess. And then other Garland and class 4th Moogle. I have run a fair few knight decks in my time. I really like knight decks. I think they're a lot of fun. And seeing this Beatrix is just wow. She does a lot for the deck. But you can make the Fire Garland now costs 2 CP less, so he's easier to play. And he will give, hopefully, if you've got a Princess down, probably Ovalia, all your knights brave. But using class 4th Moogle, you will not have to have any fire backups down, just use that to generate the fire for Garland, and you're good to go. Right, moving on to Celes now. When Celes attacks, choose one forward your opponent controls. If you control 3 or more category 6 characters, dull it. When Celes deals damage to your opponent, choose one forward your opponent controls, freeze it. So she can be pretty offensive. I really like the card. I played her in my Water Cup deck, and she did alright. So there's a lot of good backups for her to work with, especially because she works obviously with a 6 engine, but if you control 3 or more category 6 characters, dull it. So first and foremost, she includes herself, because all she says is if you control 3 or more category 6 characters, not excluding her. So you could have Edgar and Gestal, Empire Sid, Banana Sid, or you could have Setzer and Interceptor. I mean, these are just the backups that they work well with. You could have 3, you could have a whole backup lineup ready with Celes, and her ability will trigger. That's really decent. Snow. So when she attacks, if you've got enough of the 6 characters online already, you attack with Celes, you dull 2 things out of the way. That's pretty offensive. She's on curve, she's 3 CP and 7k. Maybe you've got Duke Larg? Is it Duke Larg or Duke Altana? Duke Larg, that buffs ice backups, ice forwards even. Or maybe you're using something like Edgar just to buffer. Either way, she's already on curve, so increasing her offensiveness is good. Now, Umaro, he's a 6 card that already works well with Celes, but the fact that he can freeze a forward at the end of your turn every turn, it means that you can attack with Celes, and even if she gets blocked and dies, that forward will hopefully, provided you've got Umaro on the field, become frozen. Cyan, so being able to give Celes Brave, as well as the ability to dull something out of the way and free something on dealing damage, just makes her much more offensive. Like I said, there's a lot of ways of making Celes just become more and more of an issue for your opponent to have to deal with. Yotsuyu, make her so she's unblockable, so she dulls something and she's gonna hit you or hit your opponent and free something. Chalinka, give her the ability to attack twice, she can dull out 2 things. If you've got Snow down, she can dull 4 things. Cool! And finally, Zac. Zac was a welcome addition to Fire. So when Zac or a Fire forward enters your field, choose one forward your opponent controls, deal 2000 damage. Same applies if you play Zac or a 7 forward. So you play something like this bad boy and you're dealing a lot of damage. So when Barrett enters the field, choose one forward your opponent controls, deal it 1000 damage for each category 7 character you control, so it includes the backups as well, and if Barrett resolves from an EX burst, deal it 2000 power for every 7 character you control. So let's say you've got a couple of 7 backups down, you've got Zac down, and then you play Barrett, you're dealing a lot of damage. Now, the thing you need to make sure of is that you've got something like Kuchaspel down, because it's all little packets of damage. Like, if you play just Zac onto the field, it'll be 2 packets of 2. If they've got Minwoo down, kind of fizzles, unless you're dealing it to a 1 or 2k forward, which probably won't get played much. But yeah, so you want to make sure you've got that ability. But either way, just playing Barrett with Zac on the field, let's say you played Zac, that's 4k you've dealt, and then let's play Barrett, no other 7 forwards, that is still 6k just from playing Barrett with Zac on the field. That's 10k for those 2, 10k for playing 7. I think I got my math right there, but yeah, either way, it's a sizable amount of damage. Similar sort of thing for Red 13. If you've got a 7 forward on the field, Red 13 gains First Strike, Haste, and plus 1000 power. And he will also have, well, Zac will have dealt 4000 damage, or 2 packets of 2000 damage to a forward your opponent controls. That with a Haste First Strike forward, that's 9k, is gonna make your opponent sweat. Kuchaspel, as I mentioned earlier, because Zac's damage that he deals are packets of 2000, you want to make sure they have no Minwoo effect on the field, or if they do, make sure you can mitigate it. Soldier, 3rd class. When Zac came out, I loved making this kind of Fire First Strike chip damage deck, because First Strike is a super powerful ability, but Fire always kind of lacked with its chip damage and it was never dealing enough damage. But if you incorporate that with First Strike, it means that effectively you are just giving your First Strike forwards a power buff. So these little guys, whilst they're dealing damage, they're also searching more of themselves to come onto the field, and their First Strike. So They do a lot for just paying 3 CP, a faux 1 CP even. And Tifa, you play Tifa onto the field, she'll deal 4k, then choose haste. If your opponent has to block, that means you've dealt 8k to hopefully 1 forward. If you play Zac onto the field and then Tifa onto the field, you've dealt 8k to something and Tifa can attack. If they've only got 1 8k forward, that means you've hopefully dealt important damage. And Iroha and Manasvin Warmech, I always love these cards. I try to throw them into every fire deck I build, or mono fire anyway. Mostly just due to the fact that Manasvin Warmech will make it so that if you just play Zac onto the field, he'll have dealt 8k on entry, 2 packets of 4. If you play Zac and something else with Manasvin Warmech increasing Zac, that's a buttload of damage. Now, it's worth mentioning that Manasvin Warmech only has to target Zac. If you play loads of other forwards onto the field, it's Zac that's dealing the damage to the forwards. So, yeah, it's a no-brainer. Iroha obviously works well because if you've got something like Barrett coming to the field that's dealing damage, but Zac's also dealing damage as well, she's increasing all the damage that's being dealt. If you put Iroha in a first strike fire chip damage deck, she's just going to help you win the race to deal damage, basically. And there we go, guys. Thank you ever so much for watching this video. It means a lot to me. Sorry I've been slowing it down a little bit, but while we're waiting for November to roll around for the Opus 12 release, I don't want to run out of all my combos I can think of, and also it does become a bit of a struggle to think of just combos every week. I want to not just put out crappy ideas, I want to have something decent in there. Anyway, let me know what you thought of the video, make sure to like and subscribe to the video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!